Hey everyone.
Hi.
We are on both Instagram and Facebook, so we're gonna try to make this work. And we hope you all are having a great Sunday night. We had a lot of fun putting this episode together. We're gonna be talking about kind of the story behind the name of the video series and kind of how we came up with that. So you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully you all saw that we did finally choose a name after back and forth, and really we probably went through hundreds of names and brainstorming over multiple days. And it was both fun and infuriating at some points, just trying to brainstorm all the different names. But hopefully you saw that we finally came up with No More Sundays.
No more some days.
Some days.
No more
We
some
still have
days.
some Sundays, but no more some days.
There we go. So I think I was the one that actually came up with this particular name, which is funny because Matt came up with these tons of amazing names leading up to this. And then I thought, one quote that I really love was from one time we were visiting Fort Lauderdale because before we had moved to Florida, and they have this really cool water taxi that you can go on. Basically that there's a river or something that there's a channel that you can just go up and down this channel on this water taxi as many times as you want. And it's super relaxing and wonderful. It was a beautiful day. And so we just kept going back and forth on this water taxi. Well, we saw a lot of yachts, as one does when you're going through those kind of areas. And one of the yachts, the name of it was Someday Finally Came. And I thought, wow, that was such a clever name. But then I also was sort of sad because I was like, well, that means someday isn't an actual date on the calendar. It's not a particular month, it's in April, on the 16th. No, there's not an actual date that is, I can point to and say, this is someday. And so I was like, oh, but that's kind of sad because I want to know when someday is here. And so that's kind of where I saw this particular name coming from and how I kind of came up with that name.
Yeah, I think to me it's a really impactful name because like Megan, my mind went back to that as well, that time that we saw that boat. And if you think about it, that wording, Someday Finally Came, is a little bit of a trap as well, because it finally came, that's in the future, and just thinking that someday my dreams are going to come true, someday I'm going to have the future I want, someday such and such is going to finally happen. And that's why I think this name really means a lot to me, because we want to stop that thinking, and instead of someday is going to come, we're not going to have that mindset anymore. Because I think really, especially, and by no means am I old, I still consider myself young, but once you hit that 30-year mark, you kind of start to realize that nothing is guaranteed, and you know that, from a younger age, but it really starts to become more of a reality, and you really need to start thinking about taking the every day as an opportunity, because you never know when your time is up. A lot of people say this is a one-shot deal that we have. And so it's the sooner we can embody that mindset and get the most out of every day, then I think the better we're going to be set up for in life. So that's why I think this name, it's not just a name, it's more of it's a motto, it's a mindset that we're trying to live out, and hopefully we can inspire you all to live out as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a backstory, but what we wanted to do tonight is give you some ways of shifting your mindset to the no more someday mindset to really give you some practicals when it comes to, okay, now I've shifted my mindset, or I'm trying to think differently, now what do I do? And so one thing I immediately thought of was when I started to shift my mindset with this, I was asked to write out everything I could think of as far as dreams go. In Arbonne, we have this thing where we write out 21 reasons why we're building a business with Arbonne. And I got through the first like 5 or 6 or so, and then I was kind of stuck. I was like, I don't really know what else I want. And I think a lot of the time we don't exercise the muscles that it takes in our brain to really dream very big. It is a muscle in that sense. It is a way of thinking that you're not used to. It's almost like that rubber band. You got to keep stretching it out. And so I started writing down everything I wanted in a bigger way. I started to open up my mind to things that I never had thought about before. And I started to try to get as specific as I could as well. I wanted to not just say, I want to go to Disney World, for example. That's not necessarily one of mine. I've been to Disney World once. I'd like to go back, sure. But but get specific. Who are you going to be with, and how long are you going to be there, and where are you going to be staying, and getting just as specific as possible. For me, one of those things was like taking a girls trip with my mom to Montana. And so I started to get really specific on where and how long, and hopefully we can get a date on the calendar soon as well. But like I said, a lot of the time we just haven't exercised this muscle. And so the more clear you get on what you want, the more your brain is actually going to find ways to make that happen. Get creative. So, for example, let's say that you want to purchase something, like let's say it's a course to be able to start to do something that you want to do. And a lot of the time an excuse we give is, well, I don't have the money for that, right? Maybe you're just living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe you feel like you're already kind of being stretched thin. I know a lot of us feel like that maybe with the COVID stuff. But so instead of thinking that way, you start to think, okay, but how can I get the money to do this course? Well, for example, we love to use, Matt is really great with Facebook Marketplace. Just if we're not using something anymore, it doesn't have a function in our life anymore. It's literally creating clutter in our brain, not just in our home. And so he lists it on there, and you can sell like 5-10 items and have, $50 to $100 in your pocket, And so when you think about it that way, how can I get the money to be able to do the thing that I want to be able to do? Then it starts to open your brain up to find a way to make that happen. Just like if you're on the road, you're playing that game, with the cars, and look for the yellow ones, you're going to spot the yellow ones.
Yeah, I think it's asking yourself the right questions, really being critical of your thought process instead of, I can't do such and such, how can I?
Yeah.
And it really is about the process of asking the right questions to yourself. And like you said, to stimulate your own thinking, to think differently instead of, I can't do such and such, how can I do such and such?
Right. So what did you have?
So my first one is banning what we're calling someday language. So when our minds start, we kind of touched on this at the beginning, but our minds start to think, and we're kind of, I guess, programmed in some ways to do this, but someday I'll be able to retire, or someday I'll take that vacation, or someday I'll get in shape, or someday I'll spend more time with my family, or someday I'll, whatever it might be. Really, when you hear yourself say that, you need to start deprogramming yourself. And whether you do something like, wear a rubber band and snap yourself, I'm sure you've heard that trick, or instead of a curse jar, you could have a someday jar that you drop a quarter in every time, something like that. Or just if you do it mentally yourself, or having somebody call you out on it, really just deprogramming and dismantling that kind of language, because how we talk to others, and even more importantly to ourselves, is so important.
Yes.
And something that I've just become cognizant of more recently, and I'm trying to work on, is really that self-talk. It isn't necessarily even words that you come out of your mouth, but the words that you say to yourself or really impact your thought process. And our language is just so powerful. So I think really trying to reprogram using that someday language and replace it with, like Megan talked about, instead of someday I'm going to do that, like planning actively to do that, either whether it's in the future or finding ways to do it sooner. And really letting your mind be a problem solver, not finding problems, but finding out how to solve those problems. Yeah. And you can even pull people into those dreams of yours. It doesn't have to be, it's not a solo journey.
Right.
Hopefully you have people in your life that you can pull into that and help you problem solve. So instead of, hopefully I can spend more time with my family, figure out ways to be creative with your family and help them solve that problem with you.
Yeah, I love that. And having that tribe as a part of it is so key. You know, sometimes this might mean, and I think we touched on this last time, you know, that you're surrounding yourself with different people, or you're limiting certain voices in your life that you had as sort of like very big influence in your life. You kind of turn down the volume on those people. I love that my mom says that, you know, turn down the volume on that and turn up the volume on the people and the tribe that you want to surround yourself with that are going to really uplift you in this goal. So the next thing I had was, I want you to get really clear on what your everyday looks like. A lot of the time, the challenge that I know we've read a lot of different personal development books, and they always say the same thing. A lot of the time, people's problem in general, people in general, is they don't know what they want. So more than even just your dreams or something that like it's a goal, they don't know what they want day to day. They don't even know what they want their life to look like, just in general. And so this is something I'm like super working on. I know Matt's worked on this. But what do you want your life to look like? What do you want that shape to be like? You know, a lot of the time we're clinging to the weekends, and really we want to create a life we don't want to feel like we need to escape from, right? Like we want to be able to create this life that we can just enjoy. And it doesn't mean that every day is going to be a cakewalk, but it means that every day we can shape it to be something along the lines of what we desire for our lives. And so getting clear and asking yourself questions like, what is your job? Like, what is your dream job? What kind of jobs or work or whatever you want to do, even if it's volunteer or whatever, what kind of activities are you going to be doing every day, either monetarily or volunteer work, or even if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, what is that going to look like for you? How are you spending your time? This is a huge one, you know. Are you maximizing the time that you have, or are you spending a lot of your time on things that ultimately, when you're sitting, you know, let's say that you're sitting in your rocker or you're laying on your bed, and you know your time is limited left on this earth, you know your days are numbered there, that you're really not going to be too concerned with, right? You know, having that end of life perspective, not negatively but positively, pointing your actions and your hours toward things that are good, right?
Yeah.
And then where do you live? For us, that was a really big question. We needed to re-examine where we live, because ultimately we wanted to live somewhere else. What Matt talked about with who are your peers? Who do you want to surround yourself with? What does your tribe look like? What kind of values do they have? What kind of expectations do they have? Because those are going to influence your values and expectations and thought processes. And the Bible talks about that, which I love. You know, he talks about bad morals, bad company corrupt good morals, right? And so, you know, who you're spending your time with is going to affect your life and your thinking, your actions. And what do you eat? And what does your exercise routine look like? And then also, like, what kind of extracurricular activities do you participate in? And you can just keep going with this. Just setting a timer and spending time writing out, you know, drawing out what do my dreams look like? What does my day look like? Because the more clear you can get on those things, more specific, the more clarity that you have in general when it comes to these kind of things, the more your brain, like I said, is going to figure out a way to make your life look like that. And this doesn't just mean something for me in a selfish way. It means, you know, how do I want my life to look for me? This is a big challenge where I can be more evangelistic and get outside of my comfort zone and talk to people that I wouldn't normally talk to and things like that. So you can just keep going with this.
Yeah, I want to go back to that point you made about looking retrospectively or going forward into the future and looking at your last day or your last days. And I think that this is an opportunity where it is important to let that, I guess I'll call it fear, stimulate you, because there is a finality to that. There is a purpose in looking at, you know, that day is coming for all of us, regardless of where you are right now. It's going to come sooner for some of us than others, but it's coming. And, you know, for me at least, when I can be really clear on that, and And when I'm sitting watching Netflix for 2 hours, when I know I really should be working on something that's going to promote and propel me forward, then if I can recall to my mind that idea, then that can stimulate me to get up and do something. Now, sometimes it's hard to do that, but the reality is sometimes fear can be a good motivator, and it's motivating us in a positive direction. That, you know, at the end of our lives, we're not going to look back and be glad that we watched another episode of Alone, which is my current watch, which I recommend, but that's my current watch, or The Office, or watch another football game. You're not going to remember any of that. So that is, it's, and like what Megan referred to earlier, it is kind of an escapism where we're trying to get away from either our problems or just the busyness or the stress. And so the more we can remember that, the finality of our lives, and as a Christian too, I think we need to think about that God has put certain things in us, that our talents, our abilities, that only we can propel out. Only we have the opportunity to serve in a certain area. And how are you gonna feel at the end of your life if you know there's more left in you? And so this is a lot more than, like we talked about the first few episodes, this isn't just about making a lot of money or having homes or material things. This is all encompassing our lives. And the spiritual things are a lot more, obviously, how we impact people, how we live as Christians is a lot more important. But just think about, you know, those last days and knowing that there was more in you that you were either afraid to do, you were too lazy to do. I don't want to be that person. And so hopefully that, at least that's how I'm trying to look at that finality, not in a negative way, not in a, just not in a bad way, but something that's helping stimulate me forward.
Yeah, and even with fear, I mean, to take that one step further, I mean, for me, I don't see it as like a fear that is, you know, it gives me an anxious feeling or is heavy weighing on me. I use it more as a sort of a motivator, you know, in that sense, something that is just propelling me forward, like Matt said, challenges me to get outside of my comfort zone, because I know it's like when you do your homework, you know, like, you know, you got to face the teacher the next day, and if you don't have it done, it's going to be a difficult conversation, right? And one thing we were talking about when we were putting things together for this episode and like notes and things was like, we want to not get to our last day and not feel like we've been used up. You know, we want to feel like every ounce of us has been used up. Everything that God has given us, every person we're supposed to touch, every person we're supposed to help or you know, say sorry to, or whatever we need to do to make things right in this world and prepare ourselves in every possible way for heaven. We want to do that thing. It's not just, you know, like Matt said, the material side of it or scaring ourselves in that sense. It's just, it challenges us, it motivates us in a good way to live the best.
Well, I mean, think about what you said earlier with outlining your dreams and your goals. Well, then are you living in integrity with those goals? If you're setting, just take my example, if I'm setting it when watching Netflix, I'm probably, if I go back and look at the goals I wrote down, most likely I'm out of integrity with those things that I said that are important to me and I want to do. Right. Now, again, we're not saying you can never have a moment of relaxing. That's not the point. Of course, there's going to be those times. And sometimes those are, if you want to add in relaxation, which is all we do want to have that recreation, that could be in alignment with your goals. But just big picture, if you're spending large amounts of time that aren't moving you towards the things that you said you wanted to do, then we're going to be out of integrity with ourselves. And ultimately, that's going to cause stress on us. That's going to make us feel badly about how we're moving if we're not progressing towards the things that we've said that we wanted to do with our lives.
Yeah, and it brings, you know, if you want to build self-confidence, you need to start by keeping those promises to yourself. So I love that. What did you have next?
So my next thing was trying to bring the someday into today. So we have these, we'll just say, longer term goals of living the life how we absolutely have it laid out, whether that's having time freedom, money freedom, living close to family, whatever it might be. You may not be there yet. We certainly aren't there yet. But trying to find ways to bring that future into every day, because one, that's going to give you something to look forward to every day. And then 2, it's going to show you that you're progressing towards that ultimate goal. And also it may show you that, okay, that's actually not my long-term goal. I need to shift that. But for me, that's trying to build in something every day that you look forward to doing, whether that's spending time with a loved one, whether that's communicating with friends, whether that's playing a sport, whether that's, getting a nice coffee at Starbucks or your local joint, whatever it is. Like having something on your calendar or in your journal, whether it's big or small, every day that you're looking forward to and that's bringing joy into your life and bringing that future into your present. Whether it doesn't have to be something large, it can be something very small. And if you're looking at, a lot of people want to start a business someday and maybe you still have your 9 to 5, well, starting a side hustle, working on something like that 30 minutes a day is way, way better than not doing it and putting that off year after year. Or if you want to write a book, I've talked a lot about that on my own accounts. Working on that, writing 20 minutes a day is way better than putting that book off for years and years that you were going to write. I've heard so many stories of people that had that novel, that one novel that was in them that they were just dying to write, and it's 30 years and they never write it. And like, what if they sat down for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes a day? Like, they would have had that written 20 times over. So there's another saying, there's a guy, he's an ultra runner. He says, he has a saying, don't die in the chair. And he's saying, don't die with sitting down, with not putting everything out that you can. So I think it's really important to bring those some days into today. Every opportunity that you have is going to help us get closer to those long-term goals that we have.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think, having that, that's something to look forward to. Not only is that just good for you in general to have that, but then also something specific to your someday. And this can even be like just sitting quietly, setting a timer if you want or whatever, for 10, 15 minutes and just closing your eyes and allowing yourself to envision what that's going to look like, whatever that thing is. Maybe it's your ultimate day. I've gone through and even written out, you could journal, like, I wake up and this happens. And I'll insert a Robert California quote here. Don't say you woke up, because everyone has done that since the dawn of man. So maybe I shouldn't put that. But writing out your goal and what is it going to feel like? Who's going to be surrounding you? What are the colors in the sky? Or what is the feeling of being in the water or your feet in the sand? I had this saying that I was saying a lot about toes in sand, keys in hand, for some goals that I had, and Matt likes to give me a hard time about that. But that was supposed to be like my little moniker to help me bring me back to that moment. What does it feel like to have your toes in the sand? That really brings you back.
Well, I think anytime you can incorporate, and maybe we'll talk about this more in another episode, but anytime you can incorporate in your vision and your affirmations more senses, whether it's smell, feeling, audible, all the senses, like, taste. I mean, anytime the more senses you can combine, you're stacking those onto that vision and just making it more and more real, is, I think, really a great tactic.
And one quote that I really love that kind of goes along with this and what Matt was saying about doing a little bit every day is, when nothing is happening, everything is happening. And there's a lot of days where you're doing a little bit of something toward your goal and you don't see fruit. And ultimately, you will see fruit. It's just going to take a while, right? And so, but at the time it feels like, wow, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. But you're planting seeds and watering them and watering them and watering them. And eventually something happens. But you have to continue even though you don't see any fruit. It looks like nothing is happening, but everything is happening underneath the surface. So the next thing we were going to talk about was some resources for you guys. Do you want me to talk about success principles first?
Sure.
Okay. So there's this really amazing book, and I know it looks really intimidating. It is kind of thick. It's called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. I highly recommend that you read it. He co-authored the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And it's just an amazing book for anybody, literally anyone. It's very applicable, and it's really helping you to think about your life. And I got it on the audio version, so if you're somebody that this looks intimidating, I've read it a few times with the audiobook. But I got the actual physical book on Amazon because I wanted to be able to do the questions that he talks about. And some of those questions were really helpful for me, for example, in figuring out what is it that I want to do, what kind of extracurricular activities do I want to do, or getting really clear on what do I really want in my life. And so he has some really great questions in here and just some really great thoughts to really help you get rid of that kind of someday mindset and really make it applicable for today.
Yeah, and I think the other one we were thinking about was the 4-Hour Workweek, which is the old classic by Tim Ferriss. And just the takeaway that we wanted to bring was about being more efficient with your time, because a lot of the things we've talked about, and we'll get more into, a lot of people are going to think, well, I don't have time to do such and such. I don't have time to start a business. Right. Or I don't have time to add more vacation or spend time with other people or start a Bible study. And the 4-Hour Workweek was really talking about being more efficient with your time and your resources, and really looking at them and figuring out, how can I allocate my time and my resources in different ways to be more efficient at what I'm good at. And so some of the examples that we just came up with, like for me, one of them, my podcast that I've started, go subscribe, shameless plug. I want to get the transcripts for those so I can use them in the future, either in a book or articles, whatever it might be. So I'm having somebody transcribe those so I don't have to take the time to do that. Another thing that we thought of too was leveraging other people's talents for things. Like right now, neither of us have a green thumb, and we don't have a mower right now, so we're paying somebody to mow our yard. But even if we had a mower, we would probably still be doing that right now because, like I said, we're not really passionate about that. We don't really like to do that. And that gives us time to work on other things that are more important to us right now. And we had a couple other examples.
Yeah, and also supporting somebody.
Yeah, supporting other small businesses in both cases, or people, friends. A good friend is doing the podcast transcripts. A good friend of ours is mowing our yard right now. So anytime you can support another small business or a friend, it makes it even better and more meaningful. Yeah.
And some other ways that we've done this, I think I mentioned just with one suggestion he has is setting up on your email. You actually have the option, just like a lot of people do this on their work email, but like leaving a little tag even on your personal email. Have a return email. I forget what that's called right now, babe.
Auto reply.
Have an auto reply set up and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get back to you unless it's an emergency or whatever you want to say. And you say, these are the days I'm going to get back to you. Or if it is an emergency, like in my case, I always say, if it's an emergency, call me or text me, because I'm not going to sit there and answer emails for 2-3 hours a day, which was what I was doing like a few years ago. I was spending hours, you can ask Matt, answering emails. Also having like an email body in your notes or in your pages or whatever app you use that you can copy and paste. So if it's something that you get like inquiries for your business a lot or whatever it is, and you have a similar response, or you've already answered questions that are similar to that, like copy and paste that so that it's already ready to go. And this is free, these aren't things that we paid for at all. So having things like that to be able to leverage your time so that you're not having to sit there and be available to people, all the time. That's not the best use of you. Unless it's an emergency, you should be able to block out your day and do the things you need to be able to do and get back to people when you feel that you're ready to get back to them. Again, unless it's an emergency. So those were just some things I know I thought of maybe one other that was free.
Grocery.
Oh yeah, the grocery pickup. This is something we wanted to leverage for a long, long time. And we were actually doing this months before all this COVID stuff was happening, but we started doing Walmart grocery pickup. If you haven't tried it, I don't know why you haven't, but if you haven't tried it, it's free. You just go there and they literally load it in your car. You do not have to sign. You barely can crack your window if you're worried about anything. And they're just wonderful. It is wonderful. You just go on the app, you go on their site, you put all the things in the cart. For us, it's very cost effective and it's very time effective. So finding ways of leveraging your time, especially if it's not something that you feel like is your talent or your strength, and you can support somebody else. And we've kind of already started to do this with our meals some as well, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, and I think really, if you think, oh, I can't add that expense of whatever it might be, really looking at it critically and really seeing, what is my time worth, and is it going to cost me more to do this activity or myself, or if I pay somebody else to do it, can I use my time for something else that's either more beneficial for me emotionally? I can spend more time with my family, which is valuable. I can go visit friends, which is valuable. I can study. I can start a business, whatever. Or you can actually do something that is making money. You're going to make a lot more money doing that than, let's just say, mowing the yard. So really, again, asking those questions, not just accepting the normal speak would be, oh, I need to do this because it costs money. Instead, really ask critically yourself those questions and really figure out. And in some cases, maybe right now you can't afford that, and that's fine. But really being critical and asking those questions, I think, is important to try to use your time, which is our most important asset, effectively.
Yeah, and this can even look like other things that we didn't even mention, like a cleaning lady. I know a woman, she had 4 children. She was trying to build a business. She was working. She was like, I may not have a bunch of extra money to be able to pay a cleaning lady, but I need that right now while I'm building my business, while I'm helping to support my children and all of that. And so she decided to, stretch her budget and work and hustle a little harder so that she could have that and be able to build her business. And now, she never has to work again because she put in the work in the front end. And so we were going to close with a few things. So we do have our official YouTube channel. We're going to put the link in the comments so that you can go and subscribe and share with your friends. So we'll be posting this episode as soon as we can as well. But the first 2 episodes are up on the YouTube channel, and it is called No More Some Days. And if you want to email us with any questions or concerns or anything like that, we do have an email attached to that. It is no more some days with a Z at gmail.com. So no more some days, DAYZ. At gmail.com. So, and then one thing we wanted you to do is we wanted you to take away something from this video. We want you to take away something from all of our videos. We don't want them to just be like in one ear and out the other. I know that can just so easily happen. So we want you to take away actionable steps. So try one of the things that we gave you, 4 different things that you can try this week to try to help you have more of that no more some days mindset. And so what we're challenging you to do is, whether you're watching live or the replay, is to choose one of these 4 things and then post on this video this week how you incorporated it. How did it go? And then we may feature 1 or 2 in our next video. So we want to applaud you guys. We want you guys to feel like this is your time, your support, and we want it to be really interactive.
Yeah, we want this to be a conversation, and if there's anything, like we just talked about, if you have any suggestions, if there's anything you want us to address, and if you could leave a comment, tell us how the week went. We'd love to see those and respond during the week, and then, like Megan said, on next week's video, if we can incorporate those into the video, we'd love to do that as well.
Yeah, so I think that's all I had.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We'll be posting some links in the comments, and we just so appreciate you guys tuning in with us tonight.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Good night, guys.